right, welcome to everybody. I just want to start off and just show you, all right, this is just Creo open. A few things that I just want to highlight here on the left-hand side. We've got a new option there, that recent file, so we can actually go and look at any of the recent files that we've looked at of late. So that's one of the enhancements that have been made. Another enhancement that has been made is, like I always say, small things go a long way. So if I go and select open, you'll see at the bottom right of the screen, we've got this quick access to say, okay, I only want to go and have a look at parts, or I only want to go and have a look at assemblies, or I would only want to go and have a look at a drawing. So I see the drawing that I want to open, and I can go and open up that drawing. Now, if we look at this this drawing, and I just go through some of these sheets, you'll see that the drawing opened very quickly, and the reason for the drawing opening up very quickly now is they've made some performance improvements during the retrieval of a multi-sheet drawing. Now the drawing retrieval time has been improved by improving some of the logic behind the generating of the drawing sheets. So with that, let's right click and go and open up this model now. Thanks to Hills Helicopter and the presentation of the Hills Helicopter, we have now got the data set that we can use, and apparently it has all been patented, so we're safe to work with it. The first thing that I would like to just show and mention, just to show you where I'm going to go, as you probably heard Alan was mentioning, you know, we've all had to restructure things in an assembly. If I look at this part over here, it's part of this A70 assembly, but it's only got that one component in. But we would also like to take this component over here and restructure it back into that assembly. So if I go and left click on it and I drag it up, as soon as I get into this assembly, it'll bring up this restructuring little information dialog on my mouse button to say that I'm restructuring into this top level assembly. And if I then select, yep, I do want to do that, it comes up with an additional window which you can control by the config. And it says, do you want to restructure this? And I'm going to say, yes, I do want to restructure it. And it goes and places that part in that assembly, and we can go and open up that assembly. And if we go have a look, that part is in there. And if we edit definition, you can see that it's fully constrained. Okay, so just something on the restructuring. Small thing makes a big difference. The next one that we're going to have a look at is this shaft. I'm just going to go and open up the shaft. Now, again, if we zoom in on the shaft now, I'm just going to show some of the highlights here. So we'll open up the design tree, and we'll also expand the body and chord tree. Now, if I go and have a look here, I'm just going to expand this out. If I go and select one of these gear profiles here, okay, and I see, okay, this this quilt is part of this top level quilt over here. And if I would like to go and restructure it, because it's not in order of restructuring in my model tree, so as you can see, I can take this quilt over here, which is this quilt, and I can go and make a new folder. And in this custom group folder, which I can rename, I'm just going to drag that and go and place it in there. Now that I've placed that in there, I can also, for instance, go up to the top level here and go to that first revolve, and I can go and select that revolve and drag it down in that custom group as well. So even though those features were not in order of regeneration in the model tree, I could easily go and manage it by this this custom group, which has also made it very nice to manage large assemblies. So let's just go and switch these off again. Okay, and we'll close this. And the next thing that we're going to have a look at is one that I quite I like. It's a good improvement that has been made. If we open this bottom oil cover, now I'm just going to highlight so that you can see where I'm going and what we have. So if I go and have a look at edit definition, this pattern of those 4 slots, it's just a normal pattern around an axis that we used, okay? And if I go into one of these members of that pattern, and I just go and have a look at the dimensions that we use to create one of these slots, I can see these dimensions over here. All right, so now that we've got that, I'm now going to go and create a new pattern. And let's just go and say, all right, I want to create a pattern. And I would like to, sorry, let me just go back there. All right, I'm going to create a new pattern now, and because what they've changed in Creo 10 now is I can actually use the feature measurements and information that was used to create those underlying features of that first slot for my pattern feature. So I'm going to go and select this 8, and I'm going to say, all right, on that 8, I only want 7 entities. So it'll go and place those 7 entities. I can go and select that, and I can see I get my pattern over there. What I can then also go and do is I'm going to edit definition that pattern again, and I can go and say, all right, on this pattern, I'd also like to select that 4 extrudes in the first direction as well. And here I'm going to say I'd like 4 of those members. So what's going to happen each time it goes to the next one on the diameter outwards, it's going to add 4 additional slots around that axis in the middle, so we can see we've got those additional slots. Now, as Alan also mentioned, if I go and look at the parameters in these patterns, this is a feature that is really nice. Now, if you've worked with patterns a lot, you would really appreciate this new feature. So this PTC actual pattern members is 7, okay, and the PTC total pattern members are 112. Now, this information can be used in your drawing, and you can also use this information in a relation. So that's some handy information that they've brought in. Now, if I go right back down to my original pattern, and I'm just going to have a look at that first extrude, which is there, zoom in on it. I'm going to create a round, select that edge there, and just bring it in a bit smaller, just something like that, and create that round. Now, with that round, I'm going to go and create a pattern. Now, yes, it'll default to a reference pattern, which is correct, and we've always had the reference pattern. What I'm now going to go and show you is we can actually now go and define it and say, no, I just want it to pattern on those first 7. So if I go and say okay on that, you see it'll pattern those first 7. Let's go back to the pattern. But now I can also go and say, all right, I want it on both. So it'll go and pattern on all of them, and I can still select and say, look, on these 4, I would not like to show it. And it'll go and pattern that reference pattern all around them. And if I go back down to this one, and I have a look at the parameters, you'll see that there's only 108 because 4 of them were excluded. And as mentioned earlier, if I go to my top level pattern and I go and have a look at the parameter, you'll see that the total pattern count is 112. And again, you can use that information in your drawings and for relation. So some really nice enhancements that make a big difference to day-to-day working with it. All right, so let's close that. Now, the next thing that I just want to show you here, let me just get this nicely orientated so we can see this little oil filler gauge for the Hills helicopter. If I go and open this up in its own separate window, Alan was talking about the datum curve, the new datum curve called closed loop curve. Now, for you that work a lot with curves will appreciate this. So if I go and select the placement of this curve, and I go and say, all right, look, I want to select that curve, holding control in, that curve, and that curve, it'll show me here that I've selected these curves, but I can also go and browse through and various selections of the curves that I selected. The nice thing about it, there's no trimming of it, there's no extending to intersection or anything like that. It's just quick and easy to go and select those curves and say, look, I'm happy with that curve. Now I can go and I can say divide the surface, select that surface, and now I've divided that surface, and I can say I'm happy with that, and now you'll see I've got that surface divided. If I go and do that same exercise again with a closed loop curve, in this instance, I'm going to select this one, and I'm going to select that one and that one as well. Okay, again, it got the curve that I want right off the bat, but I can go and step through it to see any of the other options that I might be interested in. Again, select that, go to split the surface. Again, sorry, I just want to go to that pull down and say divide surface. Between that surface, I can then say I'm happy with that, or I can split it to flip the side. But in this case, I'm going to keep it on this side, except that now I can go up to flexible modeling and say, all right, look on that surface. And if I zoom in here, I can now go and take that surface and extrude it out or extrude it back in again. And now we've got a nice model where we'll clearly be able to see the level of the oil in the oil filler tank. Okay, so just close that. That was on the closed loop surface. Now the last thing that I just want to show you, if we go to this rod end bearing, I'm just going to zoom in here and open up this rod end bearing. Now again, with the model tree, I'm just going to expand the design tree, and then I'm also going to expand the body quilt tree. Now on this body number 2, this external copy geometry, let's go and open up that reference model. So here we've opened up the reference model. Just a few things I want to point out. Notice the color of this reference model where we're going to use to do our Boolean feature. And if I go and put on my notes, you'll see that I've got a general tolerance and surface finish on that surface there. All right, so let's go back. Now that I've showed you that, let's just go back to our original model. Just want to close this, go back to our rod end bearing, and I'll go to my Boolean operations, and here I'm going to subtract from that body, and I'm going to use this body to subtract it. Now I'm going to show you the enhancements that they've made. So if I preview this now, we can see that copy geometry that I've used, it's now subtracted it from this rod end bearing. But the new features they've brought in is I can now say copy the surface appearance. So that blue color that I brought across from my copy geometry is now referenced inside of the actual model. And if we go back to it and I say, well, update the references for me as well, and I do that, you'll see that the GTOL came across with it. So that is, again, very handy when you're doing, you know, an assembly with a lot of cutouts and you're using copy geometry. Do it once, and that information will be there when you do your Boolean operations. Okay, so that's about it for the form modeling, and I'll hand back over to Alan. Thank you.